Let's take a look at question 4. Now, question 4 asks us, well, it gives us a statement and asks you to respond to that statement. To what extent do you agree or disagree? And our focus was the writer suggests that the earthquake completely destroys the girl's sense of safety. We truly feel her fear. So you're talking lines 23 to the end, where the earthquake is fully hit. The tension is at its height. And do you agree, or do you agree to a certain extent, that the girl's safety is destroyed? Do we truly feel her fear? Now, from all of the conversations that we've had so far today, my suggestion would be yes. Yes, we can see that her sense of safety has been completely destroyed. Yes, we can truly feel her fear when she is, wide-eyed in terror or whatever it was. Wide-eyed horror. The fact that the earthquake seems to be swallowing the ground beneath her. Surely her sense of safety has been disrupted. Now, there's a couple of things with this question that you just need to make sure that you are doing. You must make a judgment. It's an evaluation question, and evaluating is judging something. I always link it to football. If you are watching a football game and you evaluate a player's performance, you're making a judgment. And the way you do that, you would give me evidence. You say, oh, they passed really well there. I don't know if I can talk well about football, but they beat off the opposition. They defended that really well. That pass meant that they set up that goal really well. You are evaluating their performance. You're doing the same with question 4 with this writer. Do you agree? Do you mostly agree? Do you completely agree? Do you partly agree? I would not disagree fully. It's too difficult to do. Please try to stay focused on the statement. It's not write everything that you know about this extract and, analyze some random language just because it stood out to you and you're like, oh, I kind of want to talk about that. Just if you are picking something, make sure it constantly refers back. The girl's sense of safety, we truly feel her fear. Fear, safety, you constantly need to focus on that. If you want to think of this question like your literature essays, that's often an easy way to look at it. So in your literature exam, when you're asked, let's take Macbeth, for example, you might be asked, like, how far does Shakespeare present Macbeth as ambitious? Or how far does Dickens present Scrooge as a character who transforms? Basically, this question is a how far question. So if I look at that statement, it's basically asking us, how far do you agree that the writer destroys the girl's sense of safety and makes us feel her fear? How far do you agree that the girl is unsafe and fearful? So just please don't be put off by the question. Think of it like a literature essay. You've done literature essays over and over again. You're probably doing loads of it in your revision. It's exactly the same, but now it's just with an unseen text. You need to make sure that everything links back to like your argument, your overall thesis, your evaluation or your judgment. Do you believe that her sense of safety is destroyed? Do you believe that she's fearful? Just keep referring back to it. And I'd refer back to it at the end of every paragraph. And don't worry about repeating yourself. Like at the end of every paragraph, I'd say something along the lines of, so therefore, the girl's sense of safety is destroyed, or therefore, we feel her fear. I just keep using the same phrases over and over again. So your structure of this answer is, remember, it's 20 marks. This is always the decider in terms of It can decide whether you are going to get a grade 4 or a grade 8. This question is the big one. Make sure you give yourself enough time, you dedicate enough time to it. 20 minutes, 25 minutes if you can. Keep an eye on the clock. Think of it like a literature essay. So you're aiming for about, a page and a half to 2 pages of writing, dependent on your handwriting. You're constantly going to refer back to that statement, but you're also going to need to make sure that you're picking evidence out, just like you would for Macbeth, just like you would for A Christmas Carol. You need to make sure that you're analysing methods, language and structure. You've just proven to me in the chat today that you can pick out language and you can pick out structure. You're just putting or merging those two together. It's more free, this question. I want you to look at this question as like, this is my freedom to write however I want to write and analyze whatever I want to analyze, as long as it applies to the question or links back to the statement. They're not saying you can only focus on language, you can only focus on structure. They're saying you can focus on anything. Sophia, you don't have to focus on language and structure. That's a good question. It's language and or structure, if you know what I mean. So if you only talk about language, great. If you're like really, you read something, you're like, oh, there's so many good structural devices here, talk about structure as well. There's nothing on the mark scheme that says that you have to do one or the other. The only word they use on the mark scheme is method. Now, method means anything the writer does on purpose. Any word that the writer chooses on purpose, any repetition they do on purpose. Grace, your question. My time management is shocking with the language paper. Do you have any tips? Practice, practice, practice would be my only tip. Which question do you struggle with the most, Grace, in terms of time management? Jaden, good question. Can you reuse or repeat ideas from question 2 or question 3? This is a good question. I would say no to question 2, because remember, question 4 is on that second part of the source, lines 23 to the end. So you don't want to be harking back, talking about line 15 or whatever. But of course you can reuse ideas from question 3. So if you focused on tension and you focused on contrast, you can bring that back into question 4. Of course you can. The examiners will only see your individual questions. They don't see the whole paper for language. So I could get a question 4 from Jaden and a question 3 from Jack, and like, I don't know, it's not all one paper together. So of course repeat things if it's relevant. Grace, my issue is I spend too much time writing on each one, so I run out of time. Yeah, that's very, very common. Look, I would be led by the question numbers of how much you should be writing for each question. Question 2, write 2 paragraphs. Question 3, write 3 paragraphs. Question 4, write 4 paragraphs. Question 5, write 5 paragraphs. That would be my biggest piece of advice. And don't worry, on the day, I say this to everyone, on the day, that adrenaline will get you through it. You'll be so hyped up on adrenaline in that exam hall that you'll just do it. Something will kick in and you'll just be able to smash through it, I promise you. And as long as you know what you're looking for, like, I hope that you've taken down some notes today, like question 3, for example, you know that you're going to go in there looking for turning points. You know that you're going to look for repetition. As long as you know what you're looking for, you'll be fine. Okay, so back to question 4, you need to make sure that you're picking out evidence, just like you would for literature, that you're analysing methods, language or structure, doesn't matter. Yes, you can repeat things that you've already spoken about in question 3. Most importantly, make sure you are saying again why the writer does something. And the more you say about that, the more marks you get. Why does the writer use that word? Why does the writer choose that word over this word? Why does the writer include that repetition? Why? Just keep asking yourself why. I would suggest, because this is an evaluation question where you're making a judgment, try to use some evaluative language. And what I mean by that is, you're making a judgment on what the writer is doing. Does the writer help you feel this girl's fear? If you agree with that and you say, yes, I agree, I can feel her fear, tell me that that's successful. The writer effectively creates the girl's sense of fear. The writer vividly describes how the girl's sense of safety is destroyed. The writer convincingly helps me understand the girl's fear as the earthquake hits. Just take a couple and use them. It's a nice starter as well to use. And again, like we did for question 3, where you're tracking the beginning, the middle, and the end, and you're talking about this journey that we're taking on, I would also do that with question 4. So question 4 is lines 23 to the end. It's 10 lines. I would track the lines. We know that we are looking at how her sense of safety is being destroyed, how we feel her fear. So I track it. If I look at line 23, her stomach is churning and her stomach's tightening into a knot. That's her physical reaction to the earthquake. Then the earthquake starts to become louder and more violent. It goes from a low rumble to a terrifying roar. Then the earth is being described as monstrous and alive. The earth opens like this yawning monster ready to swallow everything whole. Then her lean-to shelter is being destroyed. It's being pulled into the earth. And in the ending, her sense of safety is completely destroyed. She no longer has any meaning or security. So I track it, almost like a small beginning, middle, and end for this question. How might this look? I'm just conscious of time and want to get to question 5, so apologies if I'm rushing a little bit. Start with the statement first. I strongly agree that the writer suggests the earthquake completely destroys the girl's sense of safety and makes the reader truly feel her fear. That is literally just a statement. Now start tracking. At the start of this section, her fear is presented as immediate and physical when her stomach churns and tightens into a knot. This visceral imagery, visceral like a physical response, this visceral imagery shows that the terror affects her body before she can even fully process what is happening. It is effective. Remember that judgment. It is effective. It is successful because it places the reader very close to her experience, making her fear feel real and instinctive. As the section develops, the writer builds the danger through sound, describing a low rumble that rises to a terrifying roar. This structural increase in volume, they've decided to do that structurally, they've increased the volume, mirrors the growing threat of the earthquake. What does it help the reader to do? It helps the reader understand that the situation is spiraling out of control. The word roar is powerful because it makes the earthquake sound like a wild beast. And now this student is then going to zoom in on key words. So they've taken the start of the section, remember it's the section, start of this section, the stomach churning, that physical reaction. Then moving and tracking the section, it moves into sounds. The low rumble to the terrifying roar. Then we're tracking again, we're moving into the feelings. It's growing, a growing threat. They're spiraling out of control. Start to zoom in to gain marks for those kind of like really developed close analysis of words. The word roar is powerful. What do I think of when I think of roar? And just keep building and building and building, but tracking your way through, I think, is going to help with your analysis, with your overall evaluation or your judgment. Any questions on question 4? I want you to think of it like your literature essay. Think of it like you're sitting down and you are just writing a Macbeth essay. Obviously, it's going to be shorter. I want you to think of it in that way. Also, a question 4, you're thinking they're looking for everything you have learnt since year 7, essentially. They're looking for, can you analyse language? Can you analyse structure? Do you understand what a writer is doing? Can you zoom in on keywords? That sort of thing.